The truth is, if you're interested in breaking into any industry, you're going to have to sit down and ace an interview or two, or maybe 10. And so today I'm going to talk you through what I used to do in order to feel calm and confident going into interviews with tons of investment banks. So with that, let's get straight into it. All right, this is 6 pages that you need to prepare before every interview. Page number 1. Interviews, like many things, can be quite daunting, but over time I've learned that the best way to tackle any big task, challenge, or problem is to simply break it down into smaller, more manageable chunks. And that's exactly what we're going to be covering today. We're going to go through 6 different one-pagers that I used to create. They can be either spider diagrams or in bullet point format. I used to vary them, but I used to create these 6 pages before I went into any interview, and they helped me prepare fully. Most of all, the confidence that I got from these pages came from literally just memorizing the hell out of them, because I was literally repeating them on and on and on for each interview. So it became second nature. I memorized them, and then I went into interviews feeling confident in my own skin. I didn't care if I, flopped a few interviews. It just gave me that level of confidence to just walk in and be myself. And I think it's fair to say that everyone going for an interview would love to be in that position. Initially, it might seem like a lot of work, but with time, the only pages that you're going to need to update are pages 4 and 5. And then naturally, all of it just gets ingrained into your memory. So page number 1, commercial awareness. Commercial awareness is what sets many candidates apart. And so here's what you need to focus on. So you want to think about what's going on in the world right now in terms of geopolitics, financial markets, global politics, so on and so forth. And you want to ask yourself, how does this impact me directly? How will this impact the company that I'm interviewing for? How will it impact the clients of the company? How will it impact the division that I'm applying to? So if you're going to an investment bank, global politics might impact the investment banking division differently to the sales and trading division, or the asset management division, or the operations business, for example. So these are things you want to think about. Anyone can just go on the Financial Times or Bloomberg or Yahoo Finance and just read articles, but that's not good enough. What's going to set you apart is to have an opinion on the articles that you read. So you don't just want to, go through 100 articles and then regurgitate what you read. When you go to an interview, you want to say, I read this article and these are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Do you think I'm thinking along the right lines? Is this how the business will be impacted on the back of this new story that came out recently? So on and so forth. The best thing you can do is practice these types of conversations with yourself in a mirror. So then when you go into an interview, it doesn't come across scripted. Next thing you want to do with regards to the 1 page on commercial awareness is you don't want to have like 100 different articles that you've noted down. You want to have like 2 or 3 articles that you've read and in depth, and that you can bring up in the interview if you're asked about commercial awareness. And then you can go into detail, share your opinions, ask questions, focus on 1 or 2 deals that happened in the article, for example, or 1 or 2 major events that you are focusing on. The reason why you want to focus on 1, 2, or 3 articles is that it allows you to focus and go deeper rather than just knowing 5 or 10 at a surface level. It's more impressive for the interviewer if you can dig deep on 1 or 2 specific things that are related to the division or the company that you're interviewing for. Let's touch on a few examples. So if you're applying to the investment banking division, it might be worth knowing a few major deals that have happened in the past month or 2 or 6 months, and why they are significant and why they're interesting to you specifically. If you're applying to sales and trading, it might be worth having a stock pitch ready. What stock or asset class are you interested in? What pitch do you have that is attractive for them to consider investing? Things like that. Knowing what's going on in the financial markets, where interest rates are, where inflation is, so on and so forth. If you're applying to asset management, ESG used to be a big topic, but now there's a lot of skepticism around it. That might be something worth considering reading into. Or you can read up on top performing funds from various other asset managers and then bringing specific questions to the interview. So there's lots of ways to go about it, but find something that you're genuinely interested in. For me, I found things that I was interested in, and then naturally I just enjoyed reading them and enjoyed talking about them, and I wasn't scared to say or ask, what's your opinion? Or just show them that I'm curious to learn and ask them to teach me, because everyone loves to teach people, right? And everyone loves an eager and enthusiastic and curious student. So you want to be that person in the interview. And then at the bottom of the commercial awareness 1-pager, you want to ask yourself, or you want to write, what commercial awareness questions could the interviewer ask me? You want to list at least 5, 10, or 15, and then make sure you have good answers for each of them. If you do that, there's no way you're going to fail when it comes to this part of the interview. And then you just replicate this for the next 5 or 6 pages, which I'm going to talk about, and then you're going to be interview ready and you're going to be much more prepared than 99% of other candidates. So it's pretty straightforward, just takes a lot of time and effort. Page 2 that you're going to prepare is technical questions. So technical interview questions. This page is going to list all of the technical questions that could possibly come up in your interview. So it might be division specific, industry specific. You will know the technical questions that could come up if you're genuinely interested in the field. If you're not, you could just Google search technical interview questions for investment banking, technical interview questions for asset management, technical interview questions for hedge funds, private equity, venture capital, so on and so forth. Get a list of 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever. The more you do, the better. But you want to make sure you list them and have good answers. Each answer doesn't need to be 2 minutes long or, tens of paragraphs long. It could be a few bullet points that guide you to answering it. And you want to do the preparation behind the scenes where you know what each answer is. So you want to list all of those, and then you want to have reasonable answers for each that come naturally off the cuff into your head when asked that question, that you can just answer it in the interview easily. The reason why I prefer doing bullet points for my answers is because if I write a paragraph, I try to memorize it and it sounds like a script and it's just a headache. So if I do bullet points, it also means that I'm confident in my knowledge. I know the topic more confidently and comfortably than if I needed a paragraph and I needed to memorize a script. So bullet points should just act as guiding points to help you talk at length. When you interview for finance specific roles, it's a certainty that technical interview questions are going to come up. So make sure that this one pager is dealt with to a high standard. If you're struggling, you can literally just Google search any interview question and you'll get a ton of answers and resources to help you answer it. If you want a free 50 most common technical interview questions guide, I'll put it in the first link in the video description below, and you can just use that if you're interviewing for finance specifically. Page number 3 is going to be a 1-pager on competency-based interview questions. So these are typically questions that ask you, tell me a time when you had to work as part of a team. Tell me a time when you had to solve a problem. Tell me a time when you had to lead a team. They test your teamwork, communication skills, interpersonal skills, all of that kind of stuff. These are a lot easier than technical interview questions, and they follow a specific structure to answer each one. It's called the STAR technique. I've done a video on it. You can just search Afzal Hussein STAR technique. You will see that video. And essentially, STAR technique stands for situation, task, action, result. This is where you're going to need to dig deep into your previous experiences at school, at work experience, on a previous internship, at university, whatever it might be. Any work experience or irrelevant experience that you've had in your life that display your teamwork, leadership, analytical skills, attention to detail, all of these things you can draw upon to answer competency-based interview questions. So what you're going to do on this page is list out all the key competencies, especially specifically to banking and finance, if that's what you're interviewing for. So leadership, teamwork, analytical skills, interpersonal skills, so communication, listening, attention to detail, analytical skills. Those are the main ones, but you can literally Google search competency skills, key competencies, and you'll get a huge list. You want to have those in mind. So when you're drawing up your CV, which we'll touch on later, you can plug some of those keywords into your CV and back it up with relevant experience and examples. Then what you're going to do is list 10 to 20 of the most common competency interview questions, and you're going to do basic answers for them using the STAR technique. So this is where you're going to use your previous experiences. You can duplicate or use one experience for more than one interview question. So for example, I used to say, when I was at uni in my first year, I didn't have much work experience, so I had to draw on like football, for example. So I used to say, as the captain of my football team, blah blah blah. That used to display teamwork. So teamwork questions were sorted. I used to talk about that for leadership. I used to talk about that for listening. So lots of different competency interview questions were answered with one experience or one example. You could do the same, and you should do the same, because not everyone's going to be able to draw upon 50 different examples from their previous experiences. Irrelevant experiences are completely fine. They're actually expected. So don't be afraid to talk about the time you were volunteering or doing something non-work related, but you developed a relevant competency skill. And always, for competency questions, use the STAR technique. Page number 4, the firm. So the company that you're applying to. This is a page that you want to draw up where you have everything you need to know about the company, just in case you get asked a silly question like, who is our CEO? And if you don't know that question, it's quite embarrassing. So small things like that. So you want to have the company's details, like who is the current CEO, who is the company's CIO, Chief Investment Officer, who is the company's Chief Financial Officer. It's good to know those three. Those are the big three dons worth knowing. Chances are you won't get asked these types of questions, but it's covering all bases. If you get asked it and you know it, it's one more point to you compared to other candidates who don't answer it correctly. You want to know like how many countries the company operates in, how many different offices, how many employees does the company have. You can find all of this on the company's website and through simple Google searches. If you want to go a level deeper, you would know annual revenues for the past year or two, quarterly revenues. So how much money is the business, is the company as a whole, or the bank actually making in terms of revenue? How much does it keep as profit? Figures like that are impressive, and you can use them to flex in an interview. You could be like, at the end when they ask you, have you got any questions, you could be like, oh, last quarter revenue was up, profits were slightly down, are costs going up, or what's the reason for this? Is there a lack of deals in the market? Is that impacting the revenue figure? I noticed that there's been a decline in 20%, or there's been a bump in 20% from one quarter to the other. Whatever it might be, you want to show that you can spot trends, patterns, talk about the numbers, have an opinion, so on and so forth. If the trend is negative for a company, don't talk about it. If it's positive, it looks good, they want to talk about it, keep them happy. You're trying to break in, not get kicked out. Other things to talk about specific to the firm, or other things to list on this one pager, would be any special or interesting initiatives that the firm is currently doing. So is the company doing anything that is attractive to you, something that is a personal interest of yours outside of the world of work? Maybe, I don't know, charity work, volunteering, an initiative, whatever it might be. The company might be doing something similar to it or in that same realm. So if you can find something that the company is doing outside of its traditional day-to-day work and it appeals to you, touch on that, talk about that, because it shows that you've done your research beyond the division and the company, and you're looking at what the company offers outside of its business. Examples could be any interesting charitable causes, deals, investments, acquisitions, these types of things that are interesting to you. Bring them up and say why they're specifically interesting to you and what your thoughts are on them. When you're working on this one pager, you want to ask yourself, what can I know about this company specifically that will make me more knowledgeable about the company than any other candidate applying for this role? And then you want to go use the internet, use Google, and find out all of that information. List it, spider diagram, bullet points, whatever you prefer, and then try and memorize it. Page number 5, the division or the business. This one is super important because when you are applying to a company, an investment bank, let's say, and it's got lots of different divisions, the people interviewing you are going to be from a specific division, the division that you're applying to. They're going to know, why are you interested in this division specifically as opposed to all of the other divisions? If you don't have good answers, they're going to think that you've just blindly applied, and so you are not worthy of a role compared to the other candidate who is more eager and interested in the specific work that they do. So this is very important. Here's what you want to do. Throughout writing this page, you want to keep in the back of your mind the question, why do you want to work for this division? So why do you want to work for asset management at Goldman Sachs? Why do you want to work for investment banking at JP Morgan? Why do you want to work for sales and trading or global markets at Barclays or Citigroup? So on and so forth. You want to constantly ask yourself that question and keep that at the back of your mind when you're writing this page. You know, earlier I mentioned you want to know who the CEO, CIO, CFO of the company is. Well, guess what? Each division is going to have a CIO, Chief Investment Officer, especially at an investment bank. Each division is going to have a CEO, regional CEO, etc., etc. So you want to know specifically, let's say you're applying to the asset management division of an investment bank. You want to know who is the CEO or co-CEOs, sometimes there's two people, or co-CIOs, chief investment officers of the asset management business. And then there might be a CEO for that region and someone else for the US or Europe or so on and so forth. So you want to do that research, know who the key decision makers and the key leaders are of the division you're applying to. That's because the interviewer might just ask you, who runs our business in Europe? Who heads up asset management at Morgan Stanley? It's unlikely to come up, but you want to cover all bases. These are things that will come up for internships, grad schemes. Like, they want to test if you've done your research. You want to have a few recent deals or investments or talking points specific to the division that you can talk about at length. That's a simple Google search, the company, the division, recent deals or recent news, and then click on the news tab and then see what comes up, what's been in the news about that division specifically, and then make a note of the positive things that you can possibly talk about in the interview. All right, so that's a bit more on the commercial side. What you want to do also, actually try and write down, what does the division that you're interviewing for actually do? On a surface level, if I had to explain it to a 10-year-old, what would I say? So you want to know what they do, how do they make money? So how do they charge their clients? How many regions or different offices do they operate in? You want to know, how does this division fit into the overall organization? Do they contribute a substantial amount compared to the other divisions to the bottom line or top line line, revenue, profit of the bank, for example. How do they work with the other divisions? Division-specific things like this are very good to know. What does an analyst or an intern in this division actually do, and what is expected of them to progress to an associate or a director, vice president, so on and so forth. Things like this that are specific to the division are very worthwhile knowing, and it's important to know them, so then you can display them in the interview and then you impress the interviewer. So once again, you want to Google search the company's name and the division, click on news and see what comes up. Make note of the impressive or interesting and recent ones. If you want to break into the investment banking division, sales and trading division, asset management division, whatever it is, you want to find out as much as you can using Google. Or if you want to save hours and months of research, you can check out these guides, which will be in the second link in the video description below, and they'll give you in-depth information on each of these divisions. And last but not least, you want to write down the questions that you don't have any answers for. This is good because it allows you to go into the interview and ask them to the interviewer, and it shows them that you've done your research, dug deep, but you don't know everything and you're curious to find out about these questions. So don't be shy to make yourself a bit vulnerable and ask them, look, I've done my research, I've checked this out, I've learned this, blah, 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 but I've been thinking, how does XYZ work, or how does this impact this division specifically? I would imagine it does this, this, and this, or I would imagine this would be the case, but I'm not sure. What's your opinion? And then let the interviewer answer your question for you. Last but not least, you. The 6th page is going to be on you specifically. What makes you different from every other candidate? Why should they hire you? You need to create a page that highlights everything about you, because at the end of the day, going into any interview is essentially a sales pitch. So we are all going to be salespeople, whether we like it or not. We go into an interview, we need to sell ourselves and our experiences and our knowledge and competencies and skills and ability and potential to the person or people or many groups of people sitting opposite us. And so you need to be prepared. You can't just walk into a room and give your pitch, because you're not going to be prepared. And so this page is going to be all about you, and we're going to focus on the following. First thing you want to talk about is your strengths. So what are you specifically better than most other people at? Now, this is going to be quite tricky to answer, because most of us tend to be quite either humble, or what's the term, like we don't blow our own trumpet, if that's the phrase. And so it's tricky to think, oh, I'm better than a lot of people at this. But just think, what are you good at? Are you a good team worker? Are you a good organizer? Are you good at time management? Are you good at getting things done? Are you disciplined? Do you pick things up fast? Are you a voracious reader? Do you like reading a lot? Do you know, all of these things, list them. A good way to find out what you're good at is typically, what do you enjoy doing? And naturally, what you enjoy doing, you do a lot of it, and so you become good at it. Obviously, think of things that are relatable and specific to the world of work and the role, the interview you're going for. Check out the job description, see what they're looking for, and then dig out some of those things if they apply to you. All right, so once you've listed those, you want to figure out, what is your story? So everyone has a story. My story was, you know, I grew up in a council estate, 3 school meals, single parent household. The statistics said I wouldn't end up at Goldman Sachs, or, you know, the statistics said I wouldn't end up at an Ivy League uni, and I didn't end up at an Ivy League uni. And then I focused on getting lots of work experience, and I leveraged that experience because I knew that I wasn't at a top uni to just walk into a top investment bank. I needed to get that experience, use it to my advantage, take initiative, blah, 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 and then break in to an investment bank like Goldman Sachs, and so on and so forth. That's my story. Figure out, you know, your story and your motivations. What made you choose economics and finance? Why didn't you do something else? Why are you so driven? What made you want to go into finance? All of these things, they are part of your story. You want to figure out your story. Someone else's story might be, you know, throughout academia, I've always been very disciplined and hardworking. I've enjoyed studying, and so naturally I've got the top grades of my class consistently. This allowed me to go into a top college, go into a top university, and then it naturally came easy to me when I wanted to break into internships and stuff, because I found it easy given my previous knowledge and background, having done internships or spring weeks at companies, because I was financially aware, I had good financial markets knowledge, blah, 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 whatever it might be. Everyone's got a different story. Everyone's story is unique. You need to write yours down, or the key events in your story, and then be able to summarize it in a minute in an interview. So what's the purpose of this? When you talk about your personal journey or your story in an interview, it makes you human. And in an interview, a large part of an interview, I believe, is based on, you know, if you tick the smart box, the CV is good box, the person has potential box, the rest of it comes to personal likability. If the person opposite you in the interview likes you, then you're more likely to get a job than if they don't feel any rapport or a connection with the next candidate. And so sharing your story and your journey can build that bridge. So that's why you need to know your story. Other things worth mentioning or noting down on this page is what challenges have you faced? What's come easy for you? What do you do in your spare time? What hobbies do you have? Do you enjoy reading? What type of things do you enjoy reading? Basic things that make you human outside the world of academia and work. Next points you want to make are specific to the job description. See what competency skills they're looking for, and then note those down on your one page, and then write specific experiences and examples that you have where you've developed those competencies individually. And last but not least, you want to figure out what makes you interested in the role that you're applying for. So why do you want to work for this role genuinely? And you want to come up with 2 to 4 questions at the end of the interview where you're going to ask them to the interviewer. You're not going to get to ask 4 questions, but it's good to prepare. I used to do 2 person or interviewee specific questions. So 2 questions about the person. How did you end up in this seat? What do you enjoy about your day-to-day? Can you tell me anything interesting that you've been working on? Interviewee specific, and then you want to have 2 questions that are firm or division specific. So how will the growth in artificial intelligence and things like ChatGPT impact the business? Do you see it as a positive or a negative? Blah, blah, blah. If it intertwines a commercial aspect to it, great. But yeah, 2 for the person, 2 for the business. All right, so those were 6 one-page files that you should create every single time you have an interview. I know I say every single time, it sounds like a lot of work, but if you do that, I can guarantee you're gonna get a job faster than most other people. Using this approach is likely to give you the structure to help you outperform in interviews. I assure you it will, compared to not using this approach. Gives you the structure, gives you the confidence, gives you a plan to walk into an interview and kind of smash it. Anything that these pages don't cover, you will know, you can walk out the interview, rest assured, I did my best, I've done my research. That thing threw me off, it's not the end of the world. How you start and how you end. Obviously you want to be answering questions well in the middle, but don't let 1 or 2 interview questions that trip you up be the be all and end all, because it really isn't. Best of all, if you use this 6-page approach during the interview, the interviewers are gonna know and see you as someone that has come across very well researched, well organized, well prepared, and that's exactly what you want from a candidate that's interviewing for an investment bank or any type of role really. And so going into an interview aware, thoughtful and prepared is something that all interviewers love to see, so you can't go wrong. Always remember, it's a numbers game. I swear to you, it's a numbers game. So the more you do, the better you get. And we learn as humans, we learn by repetition, right? So the more you do, the better you get. Don't forget that. Thanks for watching to the end, and I hope you are able to use these 6 pages to your advantage. And I hope the next interview that you get, you smash it. If you're new around here, subscribe, hit the like button, blah, blah, blah. With that, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.